Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle something that drives us all crazy, the world of medical news, why the headlines are so contradictory, and how to spot the hidden traps in the data behind them.
You've seen the headlines, right? One day, your morning coffee is a miracle drug. The next, it's basically poison. If you feel like you're getting scientific whiplash every time you open the news, you are definitely not alone. This constant flood of contradictory info it's overwhelming.
So, what's the deal? Is the science just bad? Well, here's the thing. Usually, it's not. The real problem is a bunch of hidden traps in how the data gets analyzed, how it's reported, and, this is the big one, how we read it. You don't have to throw science out the window. You just need to learn the rules of the game.
And that is exactly what we're going to do right now. We're going to arm you with a mental toolkit to spot these common traps. By the end of this, you'll go from just scrolling past those headlines to being a really sharp, critical reader. All right, let's dive in. The first place things can go wrong is actually before a study even gets to you. There are biases baked right into the research process itself, which can totally shape what evidence we even see in the first place.
Okay, first up, we've got something called p-hacking. You might also hear it called data dredging. Picture this. A researcher has a massive pile of data. They just keep running test after test, looking for any connection. If you torture the data long enough, it'll confess to anything, right? Eventually, just by random chance, something will pop up as statistically significant. P-hacking is when they report only that one finding, making a total fluke look like some amazing discovery.
And right alongside that, you've got publication bias. Think about it. Scientific journals want to publish splashy, exciting results. So a study that says, hey, this new drug is a game changer is way more likely to get published than one that says, this drug did nothing. All those boring studies that found no effect, they just get stuffed away in a file drawer, unpublished. This creates a really distorted picture, making things look way more effective than they actually are.
So, that's what can happen at the research level. But let's say the process was totally perfect. Well, the data itself can still set some pretty sneaky traps for us. Let's dig into how the raw numbers can end up telling a misleading story.
Okay, this is a big one. Confounding. This is what happens when some hidden third variable is pulling the strings in the background. It creates this illusion of a direct cause and effect link between two things when it's just not there.
Let me give you a couple of classic examples. It's a statistical fact. When ice cream sales go up, crime rates also go up. It's also true that people who see more specialists tend to have a higher mortality rate. So what's going on? Is ice cream turning people into criminals? Are specialists actually bad for your health? No, of course not. That's ridiculous.
This is confounding in action. That hidden third variable is the key. For the ice cream and crime thing, the confounder is hot weather. When it's hot, more people buy ice cream and more people are out and about, which unfortunately leads to more opportunities for crime. And for the specialists, the confounder is how sick the patient is to begin with. Really sick people need to see more specialists, and sadly, they're also more likely to pass away.
Another trap lurking in the data is the outlier. You know, those one-off data points that are just way out there, totally different from everything else. A single one of these can completely wreck an average, pulling the whole number in one direction and giving you a totally misleading picture. Statisticians have tools for this, like the box plot you see here, which helps them formally identify these extreme values. But the really important part isn't just finding them, it's figuring out why they're there. Was it just a typo, like someone accidentally added an extra zero? Or is it telling us about something real and important, maybe a rare biological variation we need to pay attention to?
All right, so we've talked about traps in the research and traps in the data. But even if all of that is perfect, we've got one last major hurdle to clear: our own brains. Our minds are wired with these mental shortcuts. We call them cognitive biases. And honestly, these can be the trickiest traps to avoid.
First up, the famous confirmation bias. We all do this. It's our natural instinct to look for and believe information that backs up what we already think is true. So if you're convinced that a certain diet is the best, you'll see every article that agrees with you as solid proof, and you'll probably just scroll right past anything that says otherwise.
Next, we have anchoring bias. This is all about the power of first impressions. Whatever piece of information you hear first, say a really dramatic headline, it acts like an anchor in your mind. From then on, everything else you learn gets judged against that first anchor, which makes it incredibly difficult to update your opinion even when new facts come along.
And finally, there's the base rate fallacy.
This one's a little tricky, but it's super important. It's our tendency to completely ignore the underlying frequency of something, the base rate. Basically, we forget to ask, how common is this thing in the first place? And this bias can be really dangerous, especially when we're looking at the results of a medical test.
Let's do a quick thought experiment. Imagine there's a really rare disease. Only 1 in every 1,000 people has it. Now, there's a test for it that's 99% accurate. You take the test and, it comes back positive. So how likely is it that you actually have the disease? What's your gut reaction? 99%? Maybe 90%? Believe it or not, the actual chance is less than 10%. I know, that sounds crazy, right? How is that possible? It's because the disease is so rare. That's the base rate we forgot about. Let's think it through. In a group of 1,000 people, 1 person actually has the disease. They'll almost certainly test positive. But what about the other 999 healthy people? The test has a 1% false positive rate, so about 10 of those healthy people will also test positive. So your positive result means you're in a pool of about 11 people who tested positive, but only 1 of them is actually sick. That's the base rate fallacy in action.
Okay, so we've covered the traps in the research, the traps hidden in the data, and the traps inside our own heads. That's a lot. The big question now is, what do we do about it? How do we take all this and turn our skepticism into a practical skill?
Well, here's a simple little toolkit for you. 4 questions to ask yourself next time you see one of those bold health headlines. Number 1, is this really cause and effect, or could there be a confounder, a third variable messing with the results? Number 2, who are we talking about here? Who's in the data? And more importantly, who isn't? Could publication bias mean I'm only seeing the good news? 3, do these numbers seem a little extreme? Are there outliers making things look wild? And last but not least, number 4, be honest with yourself. Does this just happen to confirm something I already wanted to be true?
You know, the famous statistician George Box had this great quote, "All models are wrong, but some are useful." And that's such a perfect way to think about this. Data gives us a map, a simplified model of reality. It's not the territory itself. Our job is to understand where the map might be wrong, so we can still use it to find our way.
And this all leads to a really big question, especially for right now. As we rely more and more on artificial intelligence to help with our health, we have to remember that these human statistical pitfalls, they don't just magically vanish. In fact, we risk baking them right into the algorithms that we're supposed to trust with our well-being.
But just by understanding these pitfalls, you've given yourself a superpower for navigating the modern world. So, stay curious, stay critical, and thanks so much for joining us for this explainer.